In a franchise defined by warriors chasing strength, glory, and purpose, Remy is something else entirely. Cold, detached, and haunted by his past. Introduced in Street Fighter III Third Strike, Remy entered the stage not as a world warrior, but as a bitter soul, lashing out at the world that had left him and his sister abandoned. Unlike others in the series, he stands apart, unconnected to the wars of Shadaloo, the conspiracies of the secret society, or the grand destinies of characters like Ryu. His battle is instead quiet and personal. In this video, we'll take a look at Remy's tragic past, touch upon the theories that orbit his mysterious origins, and understand how he quietly became one of Street Fighter's most enigmatic characters. This is the story of a lonely flame left out in the cold. The brief life as a Street Fighter of Remy. Remy doesn't look like a typical Street Fighter character. Inspired by French punk and goth subcultures, his long teal hair, pallid skin, and sleek leather outfit give him an almost spectral presence. His color palette is cool and desaturated. His stage, an unassuming Parisian back alley, bathed in the neon lights of some underground nightclub. Every part of his aesthetic screams emotional detachment, and his win quotes are curt, bitter, and sometimes even nihilistic. It's a visual and emotional contrast to the rest of Third Strike's roster, where characters like Dudley, Ibuki, or Elena exude vitality and expression. Remy suppresses everything. Often seen as having a more SNK-coded design, some fans have compared him to Yori Yagami from King of Fighters, another solitary character with bright hair and a tormented past. But where Yori burns with rage, Remy feels cold and bitter. That he seems out of place is due in part to how his character was created. As the final character added to the roster of Third Strike, the developers realized that there was no BK character in the Street Fighter III series. BK meaning beautiful type, often referring to a slim, stylish, and feminine-looking man. Remy had somewhere between 40 to 50 different designs, and was created by a single character designer, rather than the game design team as a whole, which could be another reason for him feeling that he doesn't belong, as well as his story seeming incomplete. In fact, it feels completely separated from the rest of Street Fighter's world, told in fragments through his silence, gestures, and bitter words. This much we do know. Remy hails from France, and his father was once a fighter, someone who chose the path of the warrior over his family. One day he walked away, leaving behind a son and a daughter. No goodbyes, and never a word heard again. His sister didn't survive. Her death devastated Remy. Unable to let go, he somehow had his sister encased in a block of ice, placing her in a cave somewhere in the Bay of Biscay. The grief of her loss would harden into hatred, not just for the man who left them, but for everyone who had chosen the path of the warrior. And yet, in a twist of cruel irony, Remy himself became a fighter. He trained in savate, also known as French kickboxing, a style focused on footwork and striking. At first glance, Remy's fighting style seems oddly familiar, a projectile that moves like a sonic boom, a leaping anti-air kick with the similar shape of a flash kick. This has led fans to wonder, who is Remy connected to? One theory is that Guile is Remy's illegitimate father, or at least may have mentored him. Guile did spend time in France, appearing inside an air hangar within a background in Final Fight 2. But the timeline doesn't really line up for him to be Remy's father. Final Fight 2 taking place sometime in the 90s, and Third Strike seemingly taking place around the turn of the millennium. Of course, Capcom has never confirmed anything regarding such a connection. Others have instead suggested Charlie Nash as having a similar connection, with Nash having met an abrupt end at the hands of Bison in the Alpha series. He fits the bill as a warrior gone missing. It is a tenuous link, however, and nothing else really connects the tragic soldier with Remy. One of the more popular fan theories suggests that Abel, the genetically engineered fighter introduced in Street Fighter IV, could be Remy's father, having had lost his memory and being unsure about his past. On the surface, it's an intriguing idea, but it doesn't quite hold up to established canon. Abel was one of M. Bison's earliest doll experiments, a clone raised in a laboratory with no true family or origin beyond Shadowloo's control. This is why he's susceptible to being controlled by psychopower in Street Fighter V, much like the other dolls. The only real ties between Abel and Remy are superficial. Both are French, and if you include Remy's similar moveset, both have some kind of link to Guile and Nash. Beyond that, the theory starts to unravel. It's more of a thematic coincidence than a narrative connection. Ultimately, none of these theories are confirmed, and Capcom remains silent. Even Remy's character guide, released at the time of Street Fighter V, is brief and unenlightening. Back to his story in Third Strike, Remy travels the world to challenge other fighters. A decision that's often seen as hypocritical, given his outspoken disdain for those who walk the warrior's path. His win quotes even reflect this bitter contradiction, with lines like, "Victory, glory, and honor, those ideas don't excite me a bit." The only explanation that really makes sense is that Remy targets fighters who, like his father, have abandoned everything, even their loved ones, in pursuit of strength. Whether it's revenge against the father who abandoned him, or a desperate attempt to understand the man who left him behind, isn't entirely clear. What is clear, though, is that Remy is a deeply conflicted young man, haunted by his past, lashing out at a world he doesn't know how to forgive, and struggling to find any direction of his own. The only significant interaction with another fighter we see Remy have is with Alex, who thinks he should seek therapy rather than engage in combat, though he's happy to oblige in that respect. Remy's ending also offers no real catharsis or clues to what his future holds. He just returns to the solitude of the cave where his sister rests, to a flower frozen in time. But here at last, Remy shows a moment of growth. He comes to realize that the path he's been walking, one of bitterness and solitude, mirrors the same darkness that consumed his father, a path that led to abandonment, and ultimately to the death of his sister. Though he still can't bring himself to forgive his father, Remy understands that holding on to the past will only trap him in the same cycle. In a quiet act of release, he lets his sister go, allowing her body to drift into the ocean's depths, and declares his intent to leave the past behind in search of something better. As he steps out of the cave, he's bathed in a warm light, a symbol of change and of a new beginning. What became of Remy after that moment, we may never know, but for the first time, his journey points towards hope. Though Remy's story in Street Fighter may be brief, it reminds us that some wounds never fully heal. They simply become a part of who you are. After Third Strike, Remy simply vanished. No appearance in Street Fighter 4, no mention in 5, aside from a blink and you miss it image in one of Poison's arcade endings. For all intents and purposes, it was as if he was never meant to be remembered. The only real nod we've seen since this is subtle. In Street Fighter 6, a billboard advertises the same club from Remy's stage in Third Strike. A quiet tribute, a small memorial for those who still remember him. Absence defines Remy. The absence of a father, the absence of resolution, and maybe the absence from any inclusion in a future roster. It's as if he was never designed for legacy or spotlight, but rather to embody emptiness. A soul frozen in grief, haunted by a past that never healed, and a future that may never arrive. Other fighters have been allowed to grow, redeem themselves, or change the world. But Remy lingers, like an echo of a dream you're not sure you ever had. His legacy isn't one of triumph or transformation, it's what he represents. A quiet rejection of the pursuit of glory, and a young man's fragile attempt to make peace with his pain. So could Remy return in a future Street Fighter title? Personally, I think it's possible, but not without some reimagining. His moveset would likely need refinement to better distinguish him from characters like Guile or Nash. And more importantly, his story would need to be expanded, giving him stronger ties to the series' broader mythology. There is, however, one narrative thread that could connect him to the larger plot. In his Third Strike ending, Remy ominously mentions the tides growing faster and more violent, a possible foreshadowing of the apocalyptic visions seen by G and Rose in Street Fighter V. His jacket, emblazoned with the Omega symbol, the final letter of the Greek alphabet, could also hint at the end. If Capcom chose to revisit him, Remy might find himself drawn back into the fray, not out of anger, but to help prevent a coming catastrophe. Maybe through that struggle, he'd discover that fighting can serve a greater purpose, that his strength can be used to protect, not just to grieve. Then again, maybe his story was always meant to begin and end with Third Strike. Maybe Remy really did walk away from the path of the warrior and found peace in a quiet life, far from the chaos he once hated. In the end, Remy remains one of Street Fighter's most mysterious and emotionally complex characters, not tied to global conspiracies, nor chasing tournaments or glory. Just a man trying to understand pain, lashing out at a world that left him behind. Was he meant to be a shadow of Guile's legacy? A ghostly echo of Charlie Nash? Simply a pretty face added last minute to the roster? Or is he something else entirely? A warning about what obsession and abandonment can create? Tell me what you think. Is Remy a forgotten flame, or a symbol waiting to be understood? And do you want to see him return in Street Fighter 6 or beyond? Drop a comment below, and if you enjoyed this dive into one of Street Fighter's most tragic outliers, tap on that like button and consider subscribing for more character-driven lore. Until next time, be excellent to yourselves and one another, and I'll see you soon.